from prison. All that and more coming up. Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. Another top UN official is calling on the Obama administration to investigate the role of U.S. forces in human rights abuses in Iraq. On Tuesday, Navi Pillay, the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights, said the latest documents released by WikiLeaks raise new questions about, quote, serious breaches of international human rights law in Iraq. The 400,000 classified U.S. military documents detail how U.S. forces did nothing to stop reports of abuse, torture, rape, and even murder by Iraqi police and soldiers. In addition, the WikiLeaks war logs show at least 15,000 more Iraqi civilians have died in Iraq than previously thought. Pillay's call follows a similar statement from the United Nations chief investigator on torture, Manfred Nawak. After delivering his final report to the UN General Assembly before his term ends this month, Nawak said the U.S. has knowingly allowed the torture of Iraqi prisoners.
In relation to what now has been revealed by WikiLeaks, it confirms what we knew, what we have heard, many allegations about the brutality and the torture that were systematically practiced by Iraqi security forces and also irregular militias. And I think what it shows very clearly is that the Bush and also the Obama administration knew and do know when they are handing over detainees under U.S. custody to Iraqi security forces, that there is a serious risk of being subjected to torture.
The death toll from a cholera outbreak in Haiti continues to rise, but health workers and government officials say the disease is being contained. On Tuesday, 25 new deaths were confirmed, bringing the total dead to at least 284. Another 420 new cases were reported, bringing the total number infected to nearly 3,800. Most of the deaths have occurred in the rural Artibonite region, and efforts are underway to ensure the disease doesn't spread to the crowded camps around the capital, Port-au-Prince. On Tuesday, the musician and former Haitian presidential candidate Wyclef Jean said the epidemic is worse than what's been disclosed.
The only way we're going to get results is to tell people the truth. And the truth is this. Our country at this time while I'm speaking to you, okay, has an epidemic of cholera that is spreading like wildfire through the whole country. And unless we intervene within the international community, bring in all of our resources so that we can prevent this, we're going to have more people dead than we just had on the earthquake on January 12th.
You can go to our website at democracynow.org for more discussion about cholera in Haiti. Nigeria is also dealing with its worst cholera outbreak in recent years. On Tuesday, the United Nations said over 1,500 people have died this year, 3 times the number from 2009. In Indonesia, over 150 people have been killed after an earthquake set off a tsunami off the coast of West Sumatra. Rescue teams are trying to reach an estimated 400 missing people. Clashes have erupted between Palestinian residents and Israeli police today in a northern Israeli town. Tear gas was fired at Palestinian demonstrators protesting a right-wing Israeli march through the town of Ahfam. Some of the Israeli marchers were carrying signs reading, "Israel will, quote, be cleansed of its Arab residents." The march follows a number of Israeli settler attacks on Palestinian olive groves in the occupied West Bank. On Tuesday, the UN coordinator for the Middle East peace process, Robert Seri, and Palestinian Authority Prime Minister Salam Fayyad condemned the attacks.
The urgency of ending the occupation and establishing the state is plain from the ugly facts apparent here in Turmos Aya. In recent weeks in this village alone, settler extremists have destroyed hundreds of trees by poison or by knocking them down.
The youngest of those olive trees is more deeply rooted in this land than the largest settlement in this neighborhood or any area in the country. Is more deeply and firmly rooted than that wall which will come down.
The Israeli government has been forced to release documents outlining its policies for restricting the entry of basic goods into the Gaza Strip. The documents outline a formula centered on, quote, breathing space. the number of days before a given supply completely runs out. It also speaks of a deliberate reduction of a number of goods and lists, quote, the sensitivities of the international community as a factor in whether the flow of goods should be increased. The Israeli human rights group Gisha won the disclosure after the Israeli government long denied the document's existence. The UN General Assembly's voted to call for an end to the U.S. embargo on Cuba for the 19th consecutive year. The non-binding measure drew support from 187 countries, with the U.S. joined only by Israel in opposition. The U.S. ambassador for the Western Hemisphere, Ronald Goddard, defended the U.S. embargo before the vote.
It is the view of the United States that a new era in U.S.-Cuban relations cannot be fully realized until the Cuban people enjoy the internationally recognized political and economic freedoms that this body has done so much to defend in other countries around the world. Mr. President, my delegation will vote against this resolution. Indeed, the United States believes that it is high time for this body to focus its energies on supporting the Cuban people in their quest to freely decide their own future and move beyond the rhetorical posturing that this resolution represents.
The 2 no votes marked a decline from last year, when the U.S. and Israel were also joined by the small island nation of Palau. Cuban Foreign Affairs Minister Bruno Rodriguez Padilla criticized the Obama administration for extending the embargo.
The policy of the United States against Cuba is devoid of any legal or ethical ground, nor does it have any credibility or support. This has been evidenced by over 180 votes in the General Assembly, which for the past years have been calling for an end to economic, commercial, and financial blockade.
A Tea Party-backed congressional candidate in North Carolina is facing scrutiny for having killed 2 unarmed Iraqis while serving in Iraq. The candidate, Ilario Pantano, has said he has no regrets about fatally shooting the 2 at point-blank range after detaining them near Fallujah in April 2004. Prosecutors later alleged Pantano intended to make an example of the men by shooting them 60 times and hanging a sign over their corpses that read, "No better friend, no worse enemy." Pantano did not deny hanging the sign or shooting the men repeatedly after stopping their vehicle at a checkpoint. He admitted to emptying 1 magazine of bullets into the Iraqis, then reloading and firing 30 more rounds. Despite his admission, the military cleared Pantano of wrongdoing in 2005. He's now in a tight race with Democrat Mike McIntyre in North Carolina's 7th congressional district. In Kentucky, the campaign of the Tea Party-backed Republican Senate candidate Rand Paul is facing criticism after a volunteer was videotaped physically assaulting a protester. Lauren Val of the group MoveOn.org was thrown to the ground by a group of Paul's supporters before Paul's debate with Democrat Jack Conway Monday night. As Val lay on the ground, Tim Proffitt, a coordinator for Paul's campaign in central Kentucky, stomped on her head. She suffered a concussion and multiple sprains as a result. Paul's campaign says it has cut ties with Proffitt, who's been charged with 4th-degree assault. And a federal appeals court has struck down an Arizona law requiring proof of citizenship in order to register to vote. Arizona voters approved the measure in a 2004 referendum. In its ruling, the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals overturned the law's identification requirement for voter registration, but upheld it for voting at polling stations. And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Amy